section on this secularism, the most important thing is out of these ideas, we have to decide what is good or what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, right? So, axiology is the name given to moral philosophy. Basically, it is moral philosophy, deciding what is right or wrong, right? And it is made of ethics and aesthetics. We are not going into any details here. This is not a philosophy class. I'm just telling you how things are done. So this is the criteria. Think about this line that decides anything on this side is bad and anything on this side is good. This is the line. Yeah, you will have a line, right? So the question is, how is this line drawn?
Today
Sorry.
Today is actually, this line has become pretty volatile. People change every day.
So you're making, so you are right, but basically.
And if you don't change, they say, oh, this guy is fundamentalist. He's stubborn.
You're right.
Or he's
So
non-flexible.
actually, everybody has a line, and it's not a changing. Everybody has a line, and that line doesn't change for that one. And the line is either you accept virtue, or, let me put it in another way, principle, by which you decide something is right or wrong, or you decide based on your happiness, pleasure principle, whether it is right or wrong.
Hedonism.
You're moving ahead. Let's do it gradually. Happiness or pleasure means something is, I'm happy, I drink, and I'm drinking coffee, it makes me feel happy, or make me feel good, or it brings about some benefits to me, all the same thing, then it is good for me. Right? If I pinch someone and he screams, that means that pinching is not good for him. He will not like it. So that principle is either pain, pleasure is the principle, or you say, no, there is a certain principle by which something is right or wrong. Now you see what happens very quickly. If someone makes this thing here, happiness and pleasure, a principle, it runs into a contradiction immediately. How? I feel happy drinking coffee, so it's good. I feel happy eating meat, it is good. I feel happy killing someone, it can't be good. Immediately you run into a contradiction. Third example, you just contradicted. If killing someone is making me feel happy, I should be doing it, right? If that's the principle I operate by. If that is the principle, we should be doing it, but we are not doing that. And we can't be doing that. Human beings can't do that. So that means that principle is very limited.
Even the second one is also contradictory.
Which one?
Eating meat. Some people don't, it's not good eating meat.
Yeah, no, I'm saying for anyone who thinks it is good. You understand? Just think. So we know that this is very limited. But anyway, coming back to a tangential point here, anyway.
Go back a step.
Which one? This one?
Yeah. You see, what would virtue?
Virtue is a principle. You accept that this is, like for instance, in the modern world, today's world, we know that discrimination based on race is wrong. Whether that makes you happy or unhappy, that's the principle we go by, correct?
For instance, a person becomes a judge, then he takes an oath. And the oath they teach you, do not go with your emotions, don't.
We go with your emotion. Pleasure is an emotion.
Yes, don't go with your own judgment. Go by the book.
Correct.
By the rules. So that's virtue, right?
That's virtue. Rule, principle,
So what if somebody makes a rule that there shouldn't be any line of good and bad?
Then what happens? People can kill each other?
Everything is good.
Everything is good? everything is bad, then how, it doesn't work. So that rule itself runs into a contradiction immediately. So let me make
you
it.
mean that human mind is constructed in a feedback loop mechanism
Correct?
where whatever he does, that person does, he gets a feedback.
Of course.
And then he judges the feedback, it's good or bad. So moral criteria or the moral compass is the very foundation of human thought.
Correct?
Okay.
Yes. So a tangential problem here, issue here, this is a demarcation problem that we always come across in every place we are. In morality, we have to decide between bad and good. In science, we have to decide what is science and what is not science. In secularism, we have to decide what is public and what is private. So this issue, this line, you see, this line exists. Like he just said, this is the very foundation of human beings, civilization.
But sometimes this line keeps moving.
So we'll come to that. But the line exists. How it moves, that's a different thing. In secularism, we come one more important thing. There's another line here, the horizontal line, vertical line here, or you can say horizontal line here. You have to decide between what is secular and what is religious, both in the public sense and in the private sense. Right? Quebec is having this issue. Right? Quebec is having this issue. Since the last election, they have decided that there should be no public display of religious symbol in the public place. Correct? Okay? Fine. So what about the cross that's behind the parliament in Quebec City? Is that a symbol of religion?
Yes, of course.
You will say yes. They have ruled it no.
Right.
See,
There are exceptions for the rule. Now, this is a very interesting thing here, that there is a demarcation problem and there's a demarcation line. Demarcation between morality, bad or good, in science and not science, so on and so forth. Right? So now there's if you see people, everybody has, as Brother Shahid was saying, everybody has a different line, different criteria.
Correct.
Now
Why is that different criteria?
Hold on, we'll come to that. Now you're talking in terms of hundreds of millions of people. When they come together, live live together. Now, that's a big, huge political problem.
Correct.
These people have different kind of criteria.
Criterias. Yes.
Kind of criteria. They're coming and living together, right? So, what criteria to follow?
Correct.
How are we going to deal matters in political, legal, social, and economic
Cultural, economic, everywhere.
hemisphere? So this is
A very
an
serious,
ongoing, serious problem. Humanity is
not
facing.
problem, challenge.
It's a huge challenge. So, yes, please.
Okay. I hope you understand. This is not
This is
a
something
theoretical
very
discussion.
It's a very serious thing.
This is not a serious. This is not a theoretical discussion that a bunch of people gather together and then they feel happy.
But the collective thinking leads to norms in society, and
This
that
is-
norm becomes standard.
Yeah, this is
Majority
very,
follows.
very significant.
So hold on to your thought. Let's continue. We are coming to that. Okay, collective norms. Remember that word. Okay. So here, what you have just said here is this virtue is the collective norms, right? And
Like
one
in
is
Canada decided that a person death penalty collectively decided it's not good. It's good. No, it's good. No. Okay, collectively we agree on that. So let's get rid of it. How nice.
so. Give you another example on the collective.
Can I say something?
In
Yeah,
recently, 1776, a group of people got together in what was called the United Colonies, and they came up with a written document, and they said, they came up with some preambles, a constitution, in which they decided that a black man is 3/5 of a human being. Yes?
Yeah.
Am I saying wrong?
No.
This is what is written there. Later on, that collective norm was overturned.
Yeah, but the same collective norm has said that, a man can marry a man and a woman
So,
can marry a woman.
so you understand. So collective norms is one way. So anyway, so let's continue our discussion here. So what is virtue? So what is virtue? Virtue is actually a cyclical term, because a principle that is good is virtue, and then what the very fact that you're defining that as good is what you went in search for. Do you understand what I'm saying? You want to define what is good. Yes?
So, it can be, my definition of good can be different from yours.
Hold on. I'm just talking about virtue here so that people understand virtue. So they say anything that is virtuous is good. So what is virtuous? Anything that is good. So is it not a cycle? So actually you have not achieved anything. You have not achieved anything here by constructing this principle. Actually, these two principles are actually one. They are actually one, meaning that either collective norms or your intellect is deciding this.
Individual.
Am I wrong? Have I demonstrated that? Okay. So, coming back to here, so virtue is nothing, this concept of virtue is nothing new. It existed in the Egyptian civilization thousands of years ago. And what did they have? They had that virtue was math, and it was considered to be the concept of truth, balance, order, law, morality, and justice. And it was personified as a goddess, regulating the stars, seasons, and the actions of both mortals and deities. Okay? The ideological counterpart was Isfet, who symbolized chaos, lies, and injustice. So what am I saying here? Listen carefully. The concept of virtue was something good, was also present, it was ever present, like he said. And the Egyptians, these are the people of Pharaoh, right? They conceptualized this thing in terms of shirk, by making goddesses of good and bad. Hinduism also has the same thing. And the philosopher went as very far. Look at this. He's saying, don't think that we have become more intelligent. He said what we have just said. He says, virtue and vice do not go about saying, here we are. Neither the gods, Gandharvas, nor ancestors can convince us this is right, this is wrong. Virtue is an elusive concept. It demands careful, sustained reflection by every man and woman before it can become part of one's life. Right? I'm not going to go into the details of these things. Okay? So here, we just explained that, right? We just explained this point here. Buddhism has the Noble Eightfold Path, Four Noble Truths, and, all these divine states, again, part of virtue.
Four Noble Truths? Samyag, Vayama.
Realizing the right view, right mindfulness, right concentration, and then the fourth one I've forgotten. Okay? And remember one more important thing. These are being translated into English, so these are not actually the correct connotations that come out of, the translated works. Taoism, that's the philosophy of China. It had a concept there. Confucianism had moral manifestations of virtue, including Ren, humanity, Zhao, piety, Li, proper behavior, performance of rituals.
So, now virtue is what I can understand is a model which is the product of the intellectual feedback process. But where does the specifically Islamic axiom axiomology fall? Like, Islamic axioms are, innamal a'malu binniyat.
We are not discussing Islam.
No, I
Yeah, I
agree.
mean, I think right now what we are going through, what I'm
But
understanding,
here-
let me know that if I'm understanding right, you're just trying to tell the virtue in as understood by different people, right?
Correct.
By different systems, by different ideologies, by different people, by different philosophers, how they understand this word virtue.
So
Why we need to even bother?
So what I'm saying,
It's just a mental exercise we are doing here to have fun.
No, but
We
if,
need to understand the reason is because we are living in this country where it's a multicultural environment we are living in. We say that very easily. And then we need to understand how these things are influencing Islamic virtue, and it is changing. Islam is getting polluted from these thoughts because we don't realize, we don't know these thoughts.
So let me hold on to the what to answer your question. We'll come to that. Number one. Number two is the point of this exercise. In addition to what he's saying, is we are looking at that virtue is a common denominator across all civilizations, space and time, and you will see that all of them include certain things. Let's focus on that, and then we will explain the Muslim positions, the Islamic positions, gradually. But first, let's absorb that virtue is not something that is just modern phenomena or a Muslim phenomena. Everybody wants to be good. Whether it's in China, whether it's in the time of Iran, or it's in Buddhism, whether it's in Africa, everybody wants to be good, right? Who wants to be bad? Doesn't this sequence of events show that? But what it's showing is that everybody is constructing their own lines, right? Am I correct? Everybody is constructing their own lines. Okay, so yes, your thought is important. Islam has its own concept of virtue. It has its own ideas, but let's...
I told better we strike that.
Okay. So this is the Japanese version of virtue. Then we have the modern philosophers' views of virtue. We have Descartes, Kant, Nietzsche, Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States. Right? In modern psychology, after 3 years of study, 24 traits classified in 6 broad areas of virtue were identified as having a surprising amount of similarity across cultures and strongly indicating a historical and cross-cultural convergence. Whoa! We have achieved something. After millions of dollars of research, we achieved something. And these were cognitive strengths, temperance strength, and social strengths. So basically, all that we just covered has been put into these broad categories. Nothing new. The point is, this is nothing new. It's just renamed those concepts. And this is how virtue is depicted in the Great Seal of Virginia. You know Virginia? The state of Virginia, this is how virtue is. This is how virtue is depicted in the Egyptian civilization. So why am I sure? Why do you think I included these two pictures here?
Can you see the first picture?
Virtue with a foot on the prostrate form of tyranny on the Great Seal of Virginia. Why do you think I included this picture?
Visual representation.
That's you're close.
Visualization.
That's the modern one. No, that's correct. That's how we are taught that. But the main reason why I'm showing you this thing is this is how shirk starts. You have taken some. This is pure. This is shirk.
How does you explain?
how can you personify tyranny, zulm? Can you personify? Can you give it a human shape? Do you create an idol out of it?
Yeah, I mean, like people are doing, making Trump like.
Yeah. Keep that aside. The point is, this.
Firaun
So this is look at this. So this is where the whole problem starts. When you start personifying things, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has completely and categorically forbidden. These are ideas. Ideas do not have physical forms. And when you start doing that, you are straight going where Shaitan wants you to go to. So these are some characteristics of virtue. There are different temperance. There again, I'm not going to go into the Buddhism has its eightfold path. Again, Hinduism had, these are the 10 things that you should have for temperance. Ahimsa, non-violence. Jainism has its own. Boy Scouts have their own. 7 virtues of Christianity. 7 deadly sins. These are the 7 virtues and sins of Catholic Church. This is the virtues and these are the sins. And these are just the pictures of all these cardinal sins depicted in, where is this? I can't remember where this picture is located. This is prudence. All this right. This here, this is being depicted here. So, figures of temperance in St. Mary's Church, England, France.
So I mean, if you go back a bit, so the thing is, like, if you see all these Buddhism, they came up with the list of virtues, and then Christianity with their own list of virtues. And if you really go back and dig deep down, that where did they get this list? Who gave them this list? So you will understand, in Buddhism especially, that's more conspicuous, that you will come to know that some, over the period of time, people, holy or spiritual or, popes or big names in their particular sects, they came up with these principles and they just wrote it down. So they are more like a collective conscious category. So after learning that every civilization, every religion, every group of people existed before us had this collective conscious, they used their collective conscious to come up with the principles of virtue. So why shouldn't we do that? Right? So you are in a tough competition, bro.
Yep.
You
Agreed.
have a tough competition.
So, the temperance movement is the movement that led to the prohibition of alcohol in the United States from 1920 to 1933. You know that. Constitutionally, alcohol was abolished in the United States from 1920 to 1933. And that is where, the second part may not be very familiar, that is where John F. Kennedy's grandfather and father made a lot of money, bootlegging alcohol from Canada into the United States. Okay?
All these tunnels and all that.
Yes. So, hedonism and materialism. So, out of this, remember that diagram that was there? So, that was virtue. So, we know that people have some principles by which they decide right or wrong. We have gone through that. But that is not what we are going to study. We are going to study today's principle of right and wrong. That was the past. If you look at closely, all of them are historical that I said. What is today? What is the criteria by which we are deciding what is right and wrong today?
Pleasure, happiness.
The most important criteria is what makes us happy. If the latest iPhone gives me satisfaction, I should acquire it. Consumerism is the economic aspect of these theories. Or I shouldn't say theories, these ideas, these thoughts. So how did hedonism and materialism start? Let's look at their history. And remember the diagram I've showed you about Greek philosophy right in the beginning? Remember that diagram? Should I go and show that diagram one more time? It will take me a long time to go back.
It's fine.
Yeah?
I mean, you can.
This is
your
the
God,
diagram.
You can believe in the gods. That's right.
Huh?
With your God, you can believe. It's okay to believe in other gods too. A monotheistic person should have room for other gods.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the very first one, the Greek philosophy and how it went into secularism. Remember that one?
Yeah, if you want, you can go there.
Okay.
Sure. That's a good idea.
So just to everybody refresh that. Where's that? This one. I'm talking about this one here. This one. Remember this one?
Yeah. And then the pictures, the pictorial one where like all the Aristotle and all these people, and then who developed which. Hellenism was there too.
Yeah.
So
We are coming.
Plato,
Yeah, we are coming.
Plato is the formal.
The Socrates.
Socrates.
Yeah.
So let's go to that picture.
So basically, this is how philosophic history of ideas is there. This is the Greek philosophies. This is the Eastern philosophies. They got synthesized. Who was using the word synthesized last time? Platonism and they all got synthesized. These ideas got synthesized here, and then they further, we have gone through this in detail, so I don't want to go into that. I just wanted to refresh everybody. So this is modern secular thought, and see how modern secular thought has two paths. I believe did I bring it? No. So anyway, it has two thoughts. One is coming straight from here, and one is coming through Islam from the Muslims. So that's the path that we are talking about, and you are talking about this one, right? You are talking about this one or this one? Which one? Or actually this one?
Yeah, I think there was.
No, वो तो idealizing Socrates and वो तो
idealist or realist का था.
जब idealist और realist जब discuss किया था.
Portraits लगी हुई थी, 3-4.
And then you have description underneath.
हाँ, yes, that one.
Oh, which one was that? ये वाले तो नहीं, क्या गया? कौन किसकी बात कर रहे थे? अच्छा, उसकी जो बात कर रहे थे वो आ रहा है.
I think it was the pillars of each thought process, how it actually
right.
started.
Yeah, you are talking about this. वो आ रहा है. वो फिर दोबारा मैंने वो रखी हुई है. वो रखी हुई है. आप इसकी बात कर रहे हैं. इसकी बात कर रहे हैं. इसकी बात कर रहे हैं आप. इसकी बात. No, maybe मैं उसको दोबारा रखा हुआ है. So let me explain these things here.
Okay.
So this is just a serial diagram of the Greek Hellenistic philosophy, and how did Hellenistic philosophy develop in terms of the demarcation principle. So this is the first criteria, the split that is happening here. Is virtue the only true good? Okay, so how are you going to decide something is right or wrong? So the first thing is virtue. Yeah, principle, rule of law. If yes, okay, you go here. If no, you go here. If you go this one, that's being a skeptic. Right? You see that, Brother Fawad? Now, if you say is the only true good yes, then there are again two branches. Again two branches here. Are other things desirable? No. then you become a cynic. The word cynical comes from this thought. You have heard the word cynical. What do you understand by cynical?
I heard it, honestly.
When you say, he's being cynical, what do you understand by that?
Pessimistic,
I guess.
Negative.
negative
Skeptical.
connotation.
Skeptical. Yes, all those things combined, right? So if you think anything, nothing is desirable in this world. The only desirable thing in this world is live by your principle. Okay? Live by your principle, then you will become a cynic. If other things are desirable, like other things are desirable, right?
This definition of cynic is what definition?
The philosophical definition of cynical.
Okay.
Right? So here, when this is happening, if you say yes, you either become Aristotelian or you become Stoic. Okay? We'll explain this one here. Let's look at this branch here. I don't have this on. So let's look at this branch here. If you say virtue is not the only good, is it physical pleasure? Yes. Then you become, there are two branches there too, yes and no, and then either you become Epicurean or you become Cyrenaic. This school has died out and this is the only school left.
Which one is left?
This one, Epicurean. There's only a subtle difference between these two. And this branch here is what you call a skeptic, agnostic, whatever you want to give them their names. This is another example of, different relationship between the different schools of thought of Greek, but I'm not going, since nobody will be interested in that, so we'll skip that. And this is how actually the flow of diagrams, this is how this, from Socrates, how these different schools developed. So here, so before we go into hedonism, let's recap what these schools of thought meant. Okay? So who is a sophist? You know what sophistry comes from? It comes from here, sophistry. You've heard of the word sophisticated, right? Sophistry, sophisticated. It comes from this word here. And basically the main idea is that knowledge should be used to improve yourselves. There was no absolute right or wrong. And you know what this idea meant? Let me explain to you what this idea meant to the Greeks. A sophist in Greek meant this. Let's assume that this person and this person had a disagreement. And I was a sophist. Meaning I knew, grammar, vocabulary, poetry, those kind of things. He will hire me to defend him against him. Okay? So I will start praising him, explaining his good points, go to the temple and scream the media was what? Now it is Facebook. At that time it was go to the temple and start screaming his virtues and his good points. And it so happened that this person passed by and he didn't like it. So he said, how much did you give him? How much was you given? He said, 2 gold coins. He said, I'll give you 4. Praise me. I switched sides. Right there and then. I'm not making this up. This actually happened at the Greek temples.
Ibn Shah.
Yeah.
So these are the sophists.
These are the sophists. And out of this sophist comes the law profession. They evolved into legal profession.
And media.
No media.
Yeah.
So they are the minimum sophisticated people.
You see, so this sophists developed the art of public speaking and debate.
Use of knowledge.
Huh?
Use of knowledge to improve
For your own benefit.
your benefit. So the utility concept of knowledge.
Exactly. Utilitarian. So this is so what this is their influence today. Sorry, somebody had a
Just
question.
So these sophists, are they always speaking in the right way? Are they always speaking the right facts, or are they molding those facts as they?
How can they be speaking their correct fact?
Hold on.
So
Read the third line of sophist.
They're lawyers.
Third line of sophist, under sophist, first paragraph.
this was they believed there was no absolute
No,
right or wrong.
Hold on.
One box.
Before that, use knowledge
To improve themselves.
for themselves. Right?
So
Use
they can mold
knowledge
it
for
in
themselves.
whichever way they want.
Yes, I mean think about it. I'm praising him, 2 gold coins. As soon as I switch over 4 gold coins, obviously I'm going to be distorting things. Obviously, because right.
So this guy who's using knowledge for himself, right, or somebody who's using knowledge for himself. Actually, there's a hadith. Imam Ghazali brought this hadith in his book Usulul Fiqh, Usulul Deen, first chapter, and that hadith talks about scholars will be severely punished on the day of judgment, Islamic scholars, because they had knowledge and they didn't use it properly. So misuse of knowledge, if you remove Islam or Iman or faith or accountability. So this is the very logical and rational use of knowledge. You earned it, right? You had knowledge. So you can use it for your benefit, don't you? If you remove that moral accountability, this is what's going to happen. This is a very natural byproduct.
Outcome, not byproduct. Outcome.
So if you don't understand the balance, then anyone can be guilty of distorting and misusing.
If there's no balance, then anyone.
So your balance comes from, I guess, Quran.
Iman.
Yeah, that's right. Your faith of accountability, Iman bil Akhirah. That book actually deals with a lot of Iman bil Akhirah, and then comes to the 40th book in it, the 40th chapter is Debt, and this is how he actually mostly trying to wake up scholars to realize your work and realize your significance and he then talks about ego, istikbar, kibr, that your knowledge is serving yourself. And since you have knowledge, so hold on, you're not privileged. You're going to be more accountable. He's going to rip you apart. You're nobody in front of him. He's God.
Okay, so I need to
This is
go.
what the objective is.
So
There is a doctor, he is a cardiologist, he was Major General in Army, AFIC Commandant, and he was a friend of my cousin, and he believed, that doctor believed, General Vagar believed, once upon a time, 10 years back, that this private practice is haram because you are using your knowledge. Because I am getting salary for my 8 hours job, that's it. But if I do private practice, it is haram. But now he started practice. So
Yeah.
what do you think if it is
I
just
also
commodity?
believed that actually when I was in medical school,
Yeah.
and I saw misery. This is what I believed. I didn't feel good. Why
You know-
should we make money out of it?
okay.
So it is a process, you know.
No. Why do you think it is? Why do you think the private practice is haram? Why does he thinking
I
like?
don't think he's
No,
saying-
why? I'm asking you. Why does he think? Why does he think that? You don't know because direct influence of socialist thought. So I cannot go into that, but that is the direct thought. That is the direct influence of socialism, communism.
It could be misunderstanding of piety.
So anyway, so hold.
Rahbaniya
Okay,
is
so-
a misunderstanding of piety.
So anyway, so this is I want to cover a certain thing very quickly here. So I'm going a little bit fast here. Socrates, his Socratic ideas, he criticized the sophist. Why? Because he said, let me use a Urdu expression, थाली के बैगन हो, कभी इधर कभी उधर.
सर पंजाबी एक्सप्रेशन ज्यादा मजे का बगैर पेंदे का लोटा.
So he did not like that. He thought that there must be a principle by which you should always stick to. Plato's main idea was that it is in terms of, even though his teacher was Socrates, he believed in democratic way of thinking. Aristotle, his where that he believed in. He had similar ideas to his teacher, right, which was Plato, but he had a different viewpoint on these things. Epicurus, his main idea was that the main principle of deciding good or bad is whether you feel happy or not. If you feel happy, it is good. If you feel sad, it is bad. Happy. And Stoics, they were more rational. They said follow reason is more important than following your emotions. Right? So this guy is following emotions. These guys are following reason. Okay? So that's basically in a nutshell that, these people are. Right? So next, we look at hedonism. What is hedonism? We'll define that, but look at how Socrates found this to be very bad. He says a system of morality which is based on relative emotion value is a mere illusion, a thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing sound in it and nothing true. Okay? So anyway, hedonism is a school of thought that argues that pleasure and happiness are the primary or most important intrinsic goods and the aim of human life. I think we have cleared that. See, the point here is let us not confuse things. From Islamic perspective, there's nothing wrong in having some fun and pleasure. The problem is if you make that your principle,
Starting point. Your
then
objective,
we have a problem.
your purpose.
So here, it is a concept that has existed in all civilizations at all times. Sumerian, ancient Egypt, Greek, Hinduism, Yangziism in China, utilitarianism, today's approach, scientific basis of hedonism. Okay, it has in fact seeped into Judaism and Christianism. Okay. Look at. I'm going to go through a history of this hedonism.
Are you shedding more light on these?
No, later on. So hedonism. Look at hedonism. I'm going to go through it very quickly through this, historical development of hedonism. Look at what is written here. Fill your belly, day and night, make merry. Let days be full of joy. Dance and make music, day and night. These things alone are the concern of man. Do you think there's any difference in what today's? Can you believe that this was written almost 8,000 or I don't know how many thousand of years ago?
So what's modern today then?
What's modern? Epic of Gilgamesh. I forgot to write the date on this thing when this was. I mean, if you give this sentence to someone without giving the historical thing, they think somebody, in some Bollywood movie has just said it.
ये तो बहुत पहुंचा हुआ था शख्स।
And look at the poem in ancient Egypt. I just picked one by one, that's all. I didn't go into the details here. Let thy desire flourish in order to let thy heart forget the beautifications of thee. Follow thy desire as long as thou shalt live. Put myrrh upon thy head and clothing of fine linen upon thee. Being anointed with genuine marvels of the God's property. Set and increase to thy goods. Let not thy heart flag. Follow the desire and thy good. Fulfill the needs upon earth after the command of thy heart until they come for thee that day of mourning. You know what this line is referring to? Until your mouth. Live as happy as you can and before you die.
So party hard.
Party hard. This is what it means. And look at when it was written. Now, do you understand why Musa alayhi salam was sent to Pharaoh?
To tell him not to party that much.
Not party at all. Remember the big party.
No part.
अभी तो पार्टी
But
शुरू हुई है।
the point is,
So,
today
see,
it has-
when I was reading this, the first thought that came to my mind, this is why Musa alayhi salam went.
read it even before their death. They said, let's have a party on Bani Israel.
The question is, so what are you trying to tell us that, because it has seeped into us today, we when we greet each other, we say, when we are wishing somebody while we are partying, enjoy, have fun, enjoy, it has become a regular greet today, we greet and meet, and we say, when we are going apart, we say, take care, enjoy. Now the question for you is, so since it's there all the time, it's there too, and today we are hedonistic values, and we are trying to fit in Islam into it. So what do you suggest, that we shouldn't be like enjoying life, or?
I just explained that point like 2 minutes ago.
Islamic perspective
the
of
Islam-
player and enjoyment.
I just explained this 2 minutes.
Where do we draw the line?
Where, look,
Sir,
does
it's
that
not the starting point. Like
didn't I just say that Allah Ta'ala has not forbidden us? He says it in the Quran. Nothing is. Why are you making haram what He has made halal? Who is stopping you from enjoying what Allah has made halal? But how do you enjoy yourself? And what is that your purpose? So see, the point I'm trying to make here, one important point here to everyone. Let me just remind everyone. People think secularist ideas are modern ideas.
They are not.
Yes, this is something great that has just come upon the world. Enlightenment has just fallen on the earth. Lack of better words here. What I'm trying to demonstrate here, I'm not trying to prove anything. If you want to see it, you see it. If you don't want to see it, you will not see it. What I'm demonstrating here, what I'm showing here is these ideas are not new.
So what
When you have the March break, when every university has plastered the March break idea, it is nothing new. Just look at it. Just look at these 2 sentences. Number 1. Number 2. Once these ideas existed, this is nobody. I up till now I have never heard a alim in Islam quoting these ideas. They are talking about the destruction of Bani Israel. The zulm of Pharaoh did to Bani Israel. But what were they doing themselves? This is what they were doing themselves.
Bani Israel.
No, Pharaoh.
Oh.
Why was what was his Qarun? Why was he punished? Because he started following this.
Only this.
This became his goal.
Yeah, that's right.
We always thinking of, why was Pharaoh punished? Because he was mistreating the Bani Israel. That is true.
Yeah.
Of course it is true. But they were also doing this stuff. That is why they were doing that. They were doing exactly what today we are doing. What is happening? Everybody is hearing about the El Salvador, the migrant caravan.
Yeah.
Everybody in the news?
Honduras.
Yeah,
Honduras, sorry. Honduras, yeah. If you look at the history of what is happening, this is what Pharaoh was doing to the Bani Israel, misusing them, mistreating them, taking their labor. Yes, this is what they were doing. Today, the world is doing. The only difference is you are not doing it in the U.S. You are doing it in. If you don't know the history of Central and South America, or for the last 500 years. If you do, you will not. You are not. I'm not surprised as what is happening.
Yeah, so that was basically Pharaoh's treatment to the Bani Israel was the result of
This
their
thinking.
attitude.
We have
This
a
attitude.
question. We have a question.
Sorry, who's question?
Brother Asif.
No, so basically, I think you kind of answered it now. But I think what has happened in past is basically now history kind of repeating itself. Same ideas we're following. We're trying to follow our
So
desires. Enjoying our life, busy and
this statement is always made. People come to this statement very fast. Observation: history is repeating itself. Why?
It's because those same ideas were following whatever the previous people did.
But why? Those ideas are following each other. Why?
Well,
Three
human
things.
nature doesn't change.
Human nature does not change. I'll put it in reverse.
It's the
human nature does not change. The plot of shaitan does not change. The sunnah of Allah does not change. Don't take one of them. Because most of the time people will tell you one, not the other. If you go and sit amongst Muslim scholars, they will talk about the plot of shaitan. If you talk with the socialist and the communist, they will talk about the human nature. Right? But the thing is, it is the three.
All three.
The human nature has not changed. The plot of shaitan has not changed. And the sunnah of Allah will not change.
No, Sunnah of Allah. What do you mean Sunnah of Allah in this context?
What do you understand by sunnah of Allah?
He's talking about general overall.
What do you understand by sunnah of Allah? First of all, you tell me, then I will explain.
Like Allah is.
The words of Allah, the Sharia of Allah, the books of Allah. You know,
Okay.
Allah been sending down books, sending down messages. So the basic message never changed. So this is what he's meaning. A question. I have a question.
What was the last ayah of Surah Ala? Bal tusiruna al-hayat ad-dunya wal akhiratu khairun wa abqa inna hadha la fi sufi ula sufi Ibrahim wa Musa. You desire the life of the dunya, the akhirah is much better. This was written in the first book. It was written in the book of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and it was written in the books of Musa alayhi salam.
And even it's in here too, it's enough. That's why we've been advised by Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, recite Surah Al-Kahf every Friday. It saves you from this thing.
In Surah Kahf also has the same ayah there.
Qul hal nunabbi'ukum bil akhsarina a'mala. Shall we tell you about who are the losers when it comes to actions or deeds? And ayah continues and says that their struggle is for only this world.
Okay.
For this thing, fill your belly, music, dance. They have not set a ratio proportion of this world and hereafter.
So,
Only bal tu'thiruna al-hayat ad-dunya.
you want question?
Wal-akhiratu
So let's,
khayrun wa
okay,
abqa.
continue.
This is the thing. As he asked, where is the line of the Islam? This is the line of the Islam. You are here for 60 years and you are going to Akhirah forever. Set a proportion. Give this life this proportion, give Akhirah's proportion. Then you will be successful, and that's who Allah gave us the beautiful book. You know, Quran is there, and the Sunnah of Prophet is there.
He not only gave the beautiful book, he
Kun
gave a
fi
beautiful
dunya ka
Rasul,
annaka gharib,
he
by
gave a
Prophet
beautiful
said.
Sahaba, and he gave a beautiful people.
Yes.
Okay,
Kun
I have
fi
a
dunya
question.
ka annaka gharib. Live in this life like as you are a traveler. Live in this dunya as you are a traveler. Of course, we are travelers here for 60, 70 years. That's it. Maximum. 60, 70, 80 years. And our
So, Fawad Bhai has a question. So let's. I want to go to a particular slide.
Even for this thing, the وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Whatever you have been given, you will be asked for it. You have to answer for that. Even we eat this, you have to answer for that. If you're eating from akle halal, halal income, good for you. It's a ibadah. If somebody is eating from the haram income, not good for that person.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, like, this is not very clear and demarcated, actually. The hedonism and hedonistic principles. So I think people are not getting clear about it. For instance, like John Locke wrote U.S. Constitutional Human Rights Charter, and Stephen Miller commented on it, and he said it's Hellenistic, and all you have to do to understand that, you have to understand the God of pleasure and pain. The God of pleasure.
We are coming to that very soon.
Are you coming?
I am coming all that.
Now, having said that, so hedonistic principles, people normally understand, this is your topic coming up. When people think about Islam, what is Islam? So actually what they're trying to think is the objectivity of it. Right? And then they realize, okay, fine, chasing pleasure, making it a goal, purpose of life is not objectivity. You can add actually hedonism as an objectivity, you know. It's very significant because most people who've been secularized are actually following that principle, and they're using that lens to judge Islam. So those who find objectivity, they realize, okay, no, you know, following pleasure is not objectivity of Islam. So what is it? Now comes the problem. Something haram, halal is the objectivity. Some say, you know, some do's and don'ts are the Islam is do's and don'ts. Some say, no, it's ibadah. So he said Islam doesn't stops you from pleasure, seeking pleasure. There are some legal ways. So that puts a person in an understanding, you know, then the halal haram framework of Sharia is Islam. That's the objectivity of Islam. So if I want to excel in Islam, I need to know more that aspect of it, do's and don'ts. Right? Any comment on that, brother?
So basically, just add this thing, the objectivity of Islam is not the dunya, like he just said. Islam, Allah Ta'ala has created us for a purpose. That purpose is we have to live by what He has revealed to the last messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We have to follow his manhaj, meaning his method. And the most important manhaj method is that we have to be part of a jama'ah, part of that jama'ah is part of the ummah, and we have to call for good and forbid the evil. This is the objective in a nutshell. You can explain the details anytime, but that's the objective of Islam.
Okay.
So that we enjoy the good, and forbid the evil. So it's not enough that you don't smoke. You stop passive smoking too. Right? Isn't that what the world is doing?
Second-hand smoke.
Second-hand smoke also. Third-hand smoke also. So it is not just sufficient you don't smoke. You stop all the avenues to that thing. That's the objective. So
Dr. Shah Rahmanullah put it up in a very nicely. He articulated very nicely in two sentences. He said like an aqimuddin is the objective. So it's like a tent. You need two things. You need a tent and you need somebody to install it, to erect it. So two things are involved. Tent and somebody to erect it. And if it's not installed, what you going to do with the tent? You're going to sleep over it, enjoy it, talk about it all night. What you going to do? You're going to be busy in installing it. Right? And if you have already installed it, what you going to do? Keep it installed. Keep it installed and stay underneath it. He said Islam is like a tent. It's very beautiful. Just two things, remember. Remember the tent and remember to install it.
And that installment will save you from all these isms.
Yes.
From all these isms.
remember, Islam.
Just one question. As a Muslim and from a non-Muslim perspective also, if somebody asks that what are the mode of entertainment in your deen, like it is just the collection of sermons and this and that, Amr bil Maruf, or we have some room for entertainment, like halal entertainment.
Ali Razila Ta'ala answered it already. Somebody went to him and he said that, why are you burdening yourself, have fun, life is fun, enjoy your life. Why are you burdening yourself? What if whatever you were believing in, what if you die and you find out nothing was true? So he reversed the question on him. You remember that, right?
Yeah, I forgot.
Okay, so he reversed the question and he said that, okay, fine. If we die and we find out nothing is true, so what did we lose? We marry a couple of women, that's fine, for us, And we eat everything except very few things we don't eat. Right? And like today, I know people who go for exercise hour, 2 hours. But salah is also exercise. Take it easy. So what are we losing? We're losing nothing. But what if it becomes true? What you gonna do?
Yeah.
So the guy, he was shocked, and then he reverted to Islam.
More than that, this question was actually asked me to me at my workplace in a meeting. And I asked them, what do you mean by entertainment? I like killing people. Would that be good?
No.
So entertainment is a very subjective term. We don't think like, if you start thinking, you will understand. If you don't think, you will never understand. You enjoy baseball. I can't even understand baseball.
Yeah. It's relative.
You like cricket. The American can't understand the guy who's playing baseball doesn't understand cricket.
Yeah, I don't understand baseball.
Yeah.
I playing chess. Somebody passing by said, what nonsense is this? I love sleeping. Somebody can't understand why somebody who's on vacation has gone to sleep.
For some people, sleeping is vacation.
So there is.
So you see, the whole problem I have is when you say entertainment, it is based. We went through the fact-value distinction just at the beginning. This is the reason. If you know what that value is driving that fact, then it disappears. And what is that value? Iman. If you have Iman, your whole world viewpoint is different. If you don't have Iman, or your Iman is weak, or your understanding of Iman is something else, then your whole world viewpoint is different.
There is a very important, actually, it's a bit relevant and irrelevant, but it's very, very important point raised to me by 2 Sikhs. And they are born and raised here. One of them was physician. And he says, I know Islam. I know this. I know every religion. And he knew about Tawheed also, actually. He prophet about Quran, everything. He asked me, you say God is merciful, God is compassionate. If I don't believe in a certain set of values of Islam or Christianity or whatever, ABC, so I will be put to hell forever. He says, isn't God merciful?
Okay.
And he says there are multiple paths. You should be good human being, this and that. And
I think we have discussed this extensively.
yeah, what should I reply in a short, like...
Offline. Let me finish this, then offline I will tell you this. Okay? I'll tell you as soon as I finish this.
Yeah.
Okay? So, the hedonism, Greeks also had a different schools of thought of hedonism. They had the Cyrenaic school, which were ultra-hedonist. We had the Epicureanists, who were the atomic materialist. The greatest good was to seek modest, sustainable pleasure. Okay? Let's look at China. China also, there was the philosopher there. Everything for myself as the only virtually necessary for self-cultivation. See, it says hedonism, but not at the expense of the health of the individual. That means cannabis is not good. Right? You enjoy, but so this philosopher, Yang Zhu, was a hedonist philosopher, and look at what he says. There's no God and no afterlife. Men are the helpless puppets of the blind natural forces that made them, and that gave them their unchosen ancestry and their inable character. Leave the other ones there. There's no God and no afterlife. Is this something new? Look at it. He was in 440 BC. He was condemned and his ideas were thrown out. So let's come back to Epicurus, the Greek philosopher. Remember, Western thought is much influenced by Greek than any other philosophy. So that's why we are concentrating on here. For Epicurus, the purpose of philosophy was to the happy, tranquil life. Okay? And one of his followers, he says, stranger, here you will do well to tarry. Here our highest good is pleasure. Do you understand that? He says what? That is the end of both the body and the soul, and therefore should not be feared. He's a realist. His figure continue. This is where utilitarianism comes from Bentham and Stuart Mill. It is not the man who denies the God worshipped by the multitude who is impious, but he who affirms of God what the multitude believes about them. Basically, he's saying the other people are wrong. I'm not wrong. So these are philosophical discussion here, and this is their motto. This is when people died in the Roman Empire. This is I was not, I was, I am not, I do not care. Do you understand this? When you die, this is what they were saying. They're saying I was not. And I'll tell you something very interesting about this quote very soon. Let me just deconstruct it for you. I was not. Before I was born, I was not. I was. I came to the dunya. I am not. I've died. I do not care. Okay? I was not. You know where this phrase, this partial phrase is going to come from? Surah Insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Insana, the insan, doesn't he remember he was nothing? I was. And now, I am not. Doesn't he remember there's, what is it? قد أفلح, no. No. Surah Iqra. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق الإنسان علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا الإنسان يطغى أن رآه استغنى. Verily man thinks he's self-independent when he becomes powerful, young person. Kalla, then he transgresses. Look at the transgression.
Yeah.
Inna rabbika ruja. Verily we are going back to your Lord. You see, when a baby becomes 20 years old, you guys are young. See how I was just telling you, narrating to you what I did at 20 years old. Huh?
I get that all the time.
But
I'm still afraid of you. Don't worry.
Inna rabbaka ruja. Inna rabbaka ruja. We are going back. For what? For what? To give accountability for every moment you lived here. And see this he said that is nothing to us. Remember who died this way? Abu Jahl. Remember? He said,
Yeah.
death is coming.
Cut it
A little lower.
Yeah.
Even Pharaoh tried to repent.
But Abu Jahl didn't.
Abu Jahl didn't.
Didn't.
Yeah.
So you can see that this in the name of this philosopher in Greece, in February of every year since 2011, a 2-day symposium is being held. So has his ideas died out?
Nope.
And this guy wasn't just a little bit blasphemous, he was very blasphemous. And look at this. He created a paradox in which basically he's saying what he just said. What his question was, this is what he's saying. He says, evil exists. Can God prevent evil? Yeah, no. Then God is not powerful, nauzubillah. In fact, and then here, God does not know about all evil. Yes. Then again, He is not all-knowing. Does God want to prevent evil? Yes. No. Then God is not loving. This is what he said, just said. So Mr. Philosopher that you are talking to thinks he has come up with a great idea. It's not a great idea. People have been talking about this since time immemorial. Do you understand what I'm saying? His question is nothing new. Look at this. So basically, what am I trying to tell you here? The basic question is still the same. Human nature has not changed. The plot of shaitan has not changed. The sunnah of Allah has not changed. And what is the sunnah of Allah that has not changed? What did he say? What did he say to Adam alayhi salam when he was sending them to the dunya? What did he say? He said, go down to the dunya, and when shaitan said he will misguide them, he said, whoever listens to my hidayah, nothing will happen to him. This is the sunnah of Allah. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never left mankind with his hidayah. Ever.
So I have a question. So is there a flow chart almost like this one which goes with our belief system?
You mean this one?
Yeah.
No, this is a paradox because his basic assumption is wrong.
And what's that? So that's what
This is the basic assumption. Evil exists.
So you're saying evil doesn't exist?
No, I didn't say that. Evil, remember I explained that there are some things that I defined in terms of another thing. This room is in light. Why is it there light? Because there's light.
Absence of light.
When you take light off, then what happens? Dark. Is there darkness by itself exist?
It's the absence of light.
Is the absence of light makes darkness. Correct? Evil is the absence of good. Evil by itself is nothing. Here, he is saying evil by itself exists. Do you understand? The basic presumption here is evil by itself. And this has misguided people into what? Into out of this question, he rejected Tawheed and Akhirah. What has other people done? Hinduism has made a trinity out of it. Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer. Divided this. So evil exists only in terms of some other god, not there. What did the Zoroastrian Majusis? What have they? They have those who worship fire. What do they actually believe? They believe in the equal existence of good God and bad God. You see, confusion. It doesn't gel with your mind, right? Because if you change your basic presumption, then everything becomes fine. Do you understand?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
But is it not because of the sunnah of Allah that He allows all possibilities in all spectrums?
What meaning?
Both sides of the duality, whether it's good or evil.
That's correct.
So inherently, in order for God to be infinite and unlimited, He has to let both of those unfold.
There's a hadith. I've gone to philosophy classes on that. Okay? So there's a hadith that we should always keep in mind whenever this question comes up. The hadith goes as this. When the Sahaba were together, and they said, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by, he said, what were you discussing? This is qadar. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got very upset. He says, the ummah before you perished because they got involved in this discussion. See, the basic presumption there is somehow we can understand the quote unquote the mind of God. The basic presumption there, when that question is laid out, that statement is brought forth, is somehow we can gain insight into the mind of God. And that's where we start from. we say La ilaha. The question that we are asking is because that is what our mind is capable of. But we just started with La ilaha, meaning what? Not anything that the mind can think of is not what our concept of God is. So if you take that out, let me ask you, you see, people ask this question in philosophy class, and I was taken solidly by this one. I will ask you a question from science. Let me see. How about, if you have studied basic science, right? Basic science everybody is aware of. What happens when an infinite force meets an immovable object? Is that a valid science question or not?
Can you repeat? Infinite force can push
An immovable object.
immovable object.
Yes. Is that a valid question or not?
No.
Why not?
I think it's
Yeah, it is.
Why not? Why not?
We shouldn't think
It's a-
about it.
You see?
Yeah.
You see that?
It's a valid
You're not
question.
gonna agree. It's like,
Valid
You see that?
scientifically it's valid, but he's right. We shouldn't think.
You see that is the
because there's no answers. We don't have those
Definitely.
answers.
Correct.
We're talking about unknowns, complete unknowns.
Yeah.
To us, we just labeled it.
first of all we don't know what is infinite force.
Yes.
We don't know what is an immovable object. So how can you then relate to those things?
It's not answerable. We cannot.
Immovable object.
So you see what am I getting there at? But this question that this brother just raised, you will see that this question is always raised in philosophy class to denigrate religion and God. Right? That's the objective of it. May not be implicit, not very explicit, but implicit is there. But when you ask science questions, then you are taken back. Can any of you construct a square circle? Mathematically.
We don't have to do it. We already have.
You can't, right? That question is illogical and is invalid, correct? By very definitions in mathematics, that's an invalid question. By the same token, when you talk about God, there are certain things that you have fixed. Then you can't ask those questions unless you move outside those parameters. Does that answer your question? It doesn't. It just sheds light to it. You will have to think more about it. So anyway, so basically Epicureanism has a set of beliefs, which is the pleasure is the greatest good, and it was a challenge to Platonism. It had its own physics. It had its own epistemology. The 4-part cure of Epicurus' basic guideline is this: don't fear God, don't worry about death, what is good is easy to get, and what is terrible is easy to endure. Now let me ask you this: if you just see this, don't you think this is somebody who's written in the current times?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we talk about these ideas, modern ideas being modern. How modern are they?
6,000 years ago,
That's modern.
maybe 8,000.
So, who are people who believed in the philosophy of Epicureans? They are 17th century French physician, priest, scientist, and philosopher. He wrote 2 books reviving Epicureanism. There was another person called Walter Charlton in English. You have the Romans, Julius Caesar, Virgil. All these people, they were influential in Epicureanism. Modern times, Margaret Cavendish, John Locke, who just our brother Fawad just mentioned, and David Hume, very influential philosopher. He used Epicureanism to explain the brother's question. He explained the impossibility of our knowing God to any greater or better than his creation proves to be. Thomas Jefferson, right? He says, look at what it says. All men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights such as life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which is the very principle of Epicureanism. So would it be right to say that the American Constitution is a hedonistic statement?
Yes.
I don't know. You guys decide yourself. What I think is irrelevant. I don't want to project my thinking on you. You decide yourself, right? Karl Marx, his thesis was the difference between Demarcation and Epicurean philosophy of nature. You know, Demarcation is the one who started the atomic theory, laid down the foundations of the principles of atomic theory. And he was a materialist. And Marx is basically comparing their two thoughts and telling, what is one thinking is just like, let's say, somebody is a teacher, right? He has two students, and then third person is writing between the two what the comparing his thoughts against the teachers. Von Steuben, a very influential person in the Continental Army. 16 presidents served in the army. Okay, this is something else that got creeped in here. Another person who was Schopenhauer, another philosopher, Nietzsche, Christopher Hitchens. I think everybody almost hears about Christopher Hitchens. So these are the modern people who are thinking about that. So let's look at this philosophy of hedonism outside the Greek, concepts. We already looked at the Chinese, right? The Indians also had this one. Look at what it says. Look at this. The enjoyment of heaven lies in eating delicious food, keeping company of young men, women, using fine clothes, perfumes, garlands, sandal paste, while moksha is death, which is cessation of life breath. The wise therefore ought not to take pains on account of moksha. A fool wears himself out by penance and fast, chastity and other such ordinances are laid down by clever weaklings. Do you understand what this means? This is basically saying, go enjoy yourself, and anything against keeping, not doing wrong thing is for the weak people, foolish people. Look at the fourth statement there by the Greek one. There's no other world than this. There's no heaven and hell. The realm of Shiva and like regions are invented by stupid impostors. So what I did here, and this is where I'm going to stop here today.
Where is the reference? The last slide you just.
This
like
is
8. This is Hindu.
Yeah, this is Hindu books. Yeah. So I have put here the 3 school of thoughts here: Greek, India, China. Look at that. Do you see any? Look at it. Compare it yourself. Come to your own conclusions.
Basically, they're all saying the same.
No difference.
They're all saying the same.
You guys decide now. So my question now, and this is where I'm stopping here today. My question to all of you is how modern is modern ideas?
They're all the same because they're all coming from
They're
one source.
ancient, that's how I would say. They're not modern.
So if someone comes and tells me Islam is 16th century, 14th century, 6th century thing is not compatible with modern times.
Yeah.
What is this?
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
So Islam is like brand new.
As compared to this?
Jadidun.
Can we close this one? Just shut the